What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast, and this is the Friday undefeated UFC Vegas 54 post-weigh-in show, presented to you by Pub Sports Radio in conjunction with Superbook Sports. All the lines for the show are brought to you by Superbook Sports. Check them out, doing all kinds of fun giveaways and stuff here in the state of Arizona, and of course, other states as well. I just don't have access to those giveaways since I don't live in them, so check them out online. We are going to get started here. We take one final look at these fighters before they step in the cage on Saturday. We look for any hint of weakness, any slight stumble on the scales, any rapid blinking or terrified reaction to your opponent screaming in your face to give us one extra little edge to make some money come Saturday for these fights. First fight of the night, Nick Maximoff taking on Andre Petrowski. Maximoff came in at 184 and a half, Petrowski 185. Nick Maximoff did the multiple flex thing on the scale. No issues from him. We all know Petrowski is an absolute tank. Dude gave a huge flex. Max looked really amped up at the weigh-ins here. Good face-off. Petrowski's not phased whatsoever. I think he probably feels a little disrespected in this spot, and rightfully so. Nick Maximoff is a minus 360 favorite. The comeback on Petrowski is plus 300. I think this line is incredibly too wide. However, I do think that Nick Maximoff goes ahead and gets the win. I'm kind of considering parlaying him for something small just for a little bit of fun. It all comes down to the gas tank. This is going to be a grappling extravaganza. Maybe we see some violence once one of these guys slows down and gives up a choke or something like that. Petrowski always has those hammers. I talked about this fight going over on the Total Takedown video earlier this week, and now I'm kind of leaning to the under, so not exactly sure what I'm going to do on this one, but that's kind of my closing thoughts on the week. Carlos Candelario taking on Tetsuro Tiara. This is the one and only weight miss for the day. Carlos Candelario came in at 126 and a half. Tetsuro 125 on the dot. Carlos Candelario needed that box of shame. Came in at 127, got a half pound off, did not weigh back in, looked rough on the scales. He did weigh in just a couple weeks ago when this fight was first scheduled, and we've talked about that in the past where those rapid turnarounds, especially the people that have the big weight cuts, it takes a toll on them. It's not something that you're able to do and just spin around and do it again right away. So definitely advantage Tetsuro in that spot. These guys size up pretty well, and again, at the face-offs, Candelario just did not look very good. This is a spot where I've said I don't like laying chalk on debutants. I don't like betting on guys that are making their debut, especially when I'm not sure about the level of the regional scene competition that they've faced, but I'm really leaning towards Tetsuro here in this spot. If Carlos Candelario's at all impeded because of this weigh-in, because of the quick short turnaround, making weight twice, then Tetsuro's just going to be the fresher guy. He's going to have more gas. He'll be able to push a pace. I think he's the side here. And I do think that I've seen Carlos Candelario leave his arms out in places sometimes. Tetsuro's got a wicked submission game on him. I do think he can get caught in this spot. So the pick is going to be Tetsuro. The lean is going to be Tetsuro's submission. Whether or not I do anything betting with it, give me a follow on Twitter at DieHardMMAPod, or follow me on Instagram. I put out all of my official plays on those two spots. Next up, Verna Jandiroba taking on Angela Hill. Jandiroba made 115, no issues whatsoever, rocking the sunglasses though. Angela Hill made 115 and a half. She looked great, fantastic shape as ever. Slight size advantage to Angela Hill when they decided to go ahead and face off. Now, I do want to let you guys know, I watched the MMA Junkie stream for this one, and they had their camera at an angle today. So because of that, the size advantage thing that I'm seeing might be skewed ever so slightly. I tried to kind of correct for that, expect the fighter that's standing a little bit closer to have a slight size advantage, and then kind of eyeballing it to make sure I'm not, overcorrecting and giving you bad information, but just want to say that. So if the UFC tweets pictures and they're dead on and I'm slightly off, if somebody's a little bigger or something, that's why this week. Usually MMA Junkie has a perfect square on angle and I can really tell who's bigger, who's smaller. Not this week. It was a respectful face-off. I've been going back and forth on this one all week. I know some very sharp people on Jandiroba. I think Angela Hill has improved, so I don't necessarily expect her to just get taken down and mauled right away like always. I think there's some value on Angela Hill at plus 160. If there's other books that offer like the decision-only type of props, I think maybe that's a way to look at Angela Hill. Obviously, Verna can just wrestle and grind on her to win, but I think the finishing upside definitely comes from the Verna side. Angela Hill probably favorite if we're going all the way to the judges' scorecards with her activity and her striking. So I kind of lean Angela Hill. I think she's a live dog, but we know this is going to be close. We know this is going to be hairy. I'm probably not going to touch it from a betting perspective, except I do like the fight goes to a split decision. You can get plus 425 on that. That's one that I'm still looking at potentially making an official bet. Getting plus 425 on a Hill fight to go to a split because she's always in a split. I don't know. Seems like a half decent spot not to sweat the winner and just make sure one judge saw it the other way. Michael Johnson taking on Alan Patrick. We've got Johnson coming in at 155. Patrick made 156. Johnson was smiling, relaxed, waving. He was having fun up there, no issues. Patrick, on the other hand, the guy doing the scales today was absolutely giving people a break. Like, he was doing it so quickly. I'm suspicious that some of these people were a little closer to making weight than he let on. Patrick looked awful. He looked exhausted. He had a hard time getting on and off the scale. Barely got his arms up over his head to, like, flex when he was done and they called the weight. And then he dropped to his knees and was, like, praising God the fact that he made weight. Like, I think boy had a tough weight cut. Like, these are all signs of a man who barely made it to the scale, and he's 38 years old now. Like, we've seen him have troubles in the past. This was a good face-off. Patrick is slightly bigger. I actually was gonna pull out the tinfoil hat and say that Alan Patrick is gonna go ahead and pull the upset this week. Not after seeing that weight cut. We know this guy does nothing but wrestle. He relies on the body lock. His striking is meh. His striking defense is meh. His grappling is solid, but his gas tank is suspect as well. If he had that kind of a bad weight cut going into this fight, I mean, it's got to be Michael Johnson. So I'm picking Michael Johnson. He probably knocks him out, but that is just too... I can't trust Michael Johnson. He finds ways to lose fights, and this is the kind of opponent that he could slip up against and find himself on his back. So should be Michael Johnson, but I've probably just got to pass here. Vivi Araujo taking on Andrea Lee. Both women made 125 here. Araujo gave a solid flex, a confident smile on the scales. Andrea Lee, classic KGB, big ol' happy smile. I love the energy that she brings. She was in solid shape, looking great. The size advantage on this one appears to have gone to Vivi. It was a very good face-off. It's not a significant size advantage, but she does seem to be the bigger fighter here. I've been going back and forth on this fight all week. Currently, Andrea Lee is the slight favorite at minus 120. Vivi Araujo is even money plus 100 as the underdog, and that has been a relatively significant line movement going from KGB being the slight underdog to being the slight favorite. So I do think that's the right side. I kind of like Andrea Lee here. I think that her cardio, her pace is going to be something that Vivi will have a problem with. I do think that Vivi can make this thing close. I think Vivi can win rounds 1 and 2 via grappling, just using that big, powerful, heavy top pressure. But Andrea Lee gets stronger the deeper the fight goes. This might be a live bet spot. If Viviane Araujo wins that first round and gets some top position, and we get like a plus 150 or a plus 160 on Andrea Lee after round 1, that might be the move instead of taking it pre-flop. Next up, we got Jake Hadley taking on Alan Nascimento. Both guys came in 125.5. Jake Hadley was absolutely shredded, gave himself the old gorilla chest pound afterward. His opponent came in at 125.5 as well. Very quick weigh-in, great shape, no issues. Trains with Du Bronx. Gotta like that. These guys face off, and there's a decent size advantage here for Nascimento. I was a little surprised by that. He's super tall, he's super long, good frame for the division. I think he's a live dog here. I talked about it on Monday. I think this is going to come down to the wrestling of Jake Hadley. These guys both like to throw leg kicks. The striking is relatively comparable. It's the grappling that's going to be the big deciding factor in this one. Nascimento likes to play off his back and look for sweeps and submissions. Jake Hadley likes to be in top position and blanket you or hunt for your back and then backpack you and choke you out. So because of that, we're looking at the more positionally sound guy being the favorite. I think that makes sense, but I think this line is a little too wide. Don't be surprised whatsoever if Alan Nascimento causes scrambles and is able to get on top and pulls off this upset. So I don't think I'm betting this one. I'm going to say Jake Hadley, but there's massive dog value here on Nascimento. I'm just a little too scared to take it. Next up, we got Frank Camacho taking on Manuel Torres. Camacho 155 on the dot, Torres 155.5, and Camacho was shredded today, folks. Absolutely shredded. We have never seen Frank Camacho look this good. Apparently, this is the first fight that he's ever taken, strength and conditioning and things like that actually seriously. He made it all the way to the UFC level without running on a treadmill and taking his strength and conditioning seriously. That says something. Manuel Torres on the other side of this thing, though, kid's got abs for days. He looks solid up there on the scale. He is tall. He's going to have a big height and reach advantage in this spot. They took a nice friendly selfie afterward. Camacho might be competing with Sam Alvey for being the friendliest guy on the UFC roster right now. I got a 2-unit bomb on my guy Frank Camacho. The level of competition is just too much for me to ignore. This is the Dana White Contender Series fade spot. I do think that Manuel Torres is a round one or bust type of fighter. So if he can get Frank Camacho out of there with something big and flashy early in this fight, then he probably wins. If he doesn't, then we don't know what this guy looks like extended over 15 minutes at the UFC level. We know Frank Camacho can go 15 minutes at the UFC level. We've seen him do it before. Considering the type of shape that he is in, I expect a newer, better version of Frank Camacho, and I honestly think we're going to see some grappling. So I think it's Frank Camacho. I think it's over 1.5. I think it's Frank Camacho by decision. I got the bet on Frank Camacho straight. I'm just trusting my guy at plus 110. That is now down to plus 105, so beat a slight movement there. That always feels good. We'll see what happens. Next up, Katlyn Chookagian taking on Amanda Ribas. Both women made 125.5. No issues for Katlyn. She looked solid. Looked like she might have added a little bit of muscle on this one. Amanda Ribas had her abs popping out as always. No issues for her. She's used to making 115, so she looked clean on this way in here. Good, intense face-off. Ribas stepped in on Katlyn Chookagian. Obviously, we know Chookagian's got the size advantage here in this spot, and I did just lay the hammer down on Katlyn Chookagian. I got minus 175, 4.5 units to win 3. I know a lot of people think I'm crazy because you just take Katlyn Chookagian by decision because she never finishes everybody. I've got a suspicion Amanda Ribas does not react well to getting punched. I think she's chinny. I think she's a grappler who doesn't like getting hit in the face. If there was ever anybody who Katlyn Chookagian was going to knock out, it would be someone like Amanda Ribas coming up a weight class, not somebody who belongs in the top 5, someone who is still working their way up and also not a striker. I think if Katlyn Chookagian just kind of does her usual thing, keeps her distance, pops the jab out, and then hits her with a cross every now and again, she's going to have serious success in this fight. She probably grinds her way to a decision win, but if there is the opportunity for her to hurt somebody, this would be it. I can see Katlyn Chookagian basically winning this fight everywhere it goes, except for the pure grappling. You always got to watch out for the submission offense of Amanda Ribas, but Chookagian's been working very hard on her grappling. Chookagian is, Ribas is not much of a wrestler, let's be honest. She's really not much of a wrestler. She relies on that body lock and the, jiu-jitsu trips and takedowns and things like that. So I think Katlyn is a good enough wrestler to defend those situations. She's also a BJJ brown belt herself. So I think she's got enough chops to go ahead and stay safe on the mat. If this thing does hit there, it's not a floor is lava type of situation. I think Katlyn's better everywhere, again, except for maybe the pure jiu-jitsu. So I think the minus 175 is a fair price tag, and we got hammers laying down for this one. Luis Smolka taking on Davy Grant. Smolka came in at 136, Davy Grant 135.5. Luis Smolka looked fantastic today, folks. I tweeted this one out. My jaw kind of hit the floor. Not only does the boy have a glorious head of hair, but this is the best shape we have ever seen him in. He took this fight extremely seriously, and unless I'm mistaken, he trained with my guy Frank Camacho leading up to this one. So again, based on that, I'm expecting grappling, and we're seeing this guy turn around be in the best shape we've ever seen him in. Davy Grant, smiling the whole time, looked great on the scales. No issues for this guy. We know we know what he comes with. He's always the same. Good face-off. These guys size up well, and again, the angle was off, so I can't be certain. I got to go back and look at the UFC's tweets on this one, but it looked like Smolka was a little bit bigger. This is a fight where I'm starting to kind of change my tune here a little bit on. Everybody and their mother, myself included, has said that minus 300 on Davy Grant is just a little bit too much. It's just a bit too much. He's a guy that I love. He's an all-action fighter. He's got big power. He always puts on entertaining fights. But at the end of the day, he's also not a top 10 guy. He's not a top 5 guy. So while we think he can wing one of those hooks and put down Luis Smolka, we've seen Smolka rocked in fights before. He gets clubbed and subbed quite a bit. But he's only ever actually been knocked out clean once, I believe. So at plus 245, if we've got a guy who's coming in correct in the best shape of his life, and he's a submission threat, Davy Grant, let's not forget, has been tapped out a lot of times. That's the majority of his losses, is when he loses, he gets submitted. So we're dealing with a guy that's a little hot and a little cold at plus 245, who fills the hole of his opponent's biggest weakness. I'm kind of coming around on Luis Smolka here, guys. Like, don't be shocked if I end up throwing Smolka by sub on my card or something, because I think it's live. I do think he's got a chance here to pull the upset, especially if Davy Grant does end up clipping him. I think he throws a panic takedown and takes this thing to the mat. Luis Smolka knows what's up. Like, you don't fight Davy Grant and expect to bang with this guy unless your name is Chito Vera. Like, he's got to be looking for the grappling in this spot, and if he does, I think he's actually got a decent-sized advantage here. So maybe a live dog in Luis Smolka after everything. I was saying favor to pass, but a little too chicken to take it earlier on in the week, and now I'm kind of going, yeah, maybe I could buy me some Smolka. Swallowed wrong. I'm dying. I'm live on camera. Co-main event, Ryan Spann taking on Ion Cutela. Spann came in at 206. Ion Cutela 205 on the dot. Ryan Spann gave a one-arm flex, focused, blank face on the scales today. He took off his sunglasses, which everyone knows I knock fighters for sunglasses on the scales, but he took those off before he gave his little flex, so I'm very proud of him for doing that. Ion Cutela came in, solid, focused. Dude is thick. Like, I can't get over the physicality of the Hulk here. Ion doing Ion things at the face-off, naturally. Trying to get up and win the mental game on Ryan Spann. A little muted this time, though. I think in an interview, he said that he likes Ryan Spann. So I think he was a little toned down today just because he actually likes the guy across the cage from him. Decent size advantage for Ryan Spann here in this spot. He was wearing the sunglasses at the face-off, but I was a little surprised. It looks like he actually looked at Ion Cutela. You know, he's kind of a subscriber to the John Jones point of view where you just don't make eye contact with your opponent. We've seen Spann do that where he's just not looking his opponent in the eye before. This time, he seems to be prepared to meet his opponent, and that means a lot to me. I talked about that this week, that I think that Ryan Spann is a live dog here. I think the physicality difference is going to be something. I think if he lives up to his potential, he can beat someone like Ion, who's riding this wave of recency bias, getting over some bad fighters. All of a sudden, people think he's kind of the next thing. I'm not sure Ion is much past what we've seen before. I think that once he hits that next level of competition, he's going to falter, and I think Spann probably has a higher ceiling than him long-term, technically speaking. So if the correct Spann shows up on Saturday, I think he's the move. I'm going to play that split decision prop, folks. I think you can get the 22-1 on Ryan Spann by split. I kind of expect Ion Cutela to have a good first round. I think Spann is going to do his best to drag this thing late and keep it going longer than that first round. He said he doesn't want to get into a one-round banger. Obviously, Ion has a tendency of forcing those round one bangers, but then he slows down. I think after round one, Ryan Spann starts to use his range, starts to use his reach, starts to pick Ion Cutela apart, and then I think we're in for maybe a close decision, but I think the value's on Spann. I think the value's on the over. I'm probably going to end up betting one or both of those, and then like I said, that Ryan Spann split decision prop at 22-1 is calling me, so I'm probably going to bet that. Main event time, Jan Blachowicz taking on Alexander Rakic. Blachowicz made 205.5. Rakic made 205 on the dot. No issues for either guy. Jan looked good. Rakic is an absolute monster. This guy belongs up at heavyweight, but they went nose to nose at the face-offs. This was intense. Neither guy backing down. Jan was actually mean-mugging his opponent, which is a little bit surprising. Guys, I want to bet Jan Blachowicz here in this spot. I really do. I mean, I've been the biggest Rakic hater on the planet. Like, I always try to bet against this guy. It's like my MO. I really just don't think he's all that good. Like, he does a good job of mitigating the fight. So it makes it hard for you to beat him because he controls the space and keeps you at distance. If he's on top of you, he lays on you. He's not that offensive. Like, he doesn't do a ton of damage. So somebody who's a bit more active, somebody who goes for it a bit more, is going to be able to steal a fight away from this guy. And let's not forget about the time that he almost got knocked out by Devin Brown Bear Clark. Like, he could get popped here, and the legendary Polish Power could make its glorious return, especially in the championship rounds, where Rakic has little to no experience. So I'm kind of tempted on the dog here. The only problem I have is, of course, the interview where he talked about his neck needing surgery and his whole left side going numb, and the fact that the man is 38 years old. If this fight was a year or two ago, I am piling on Jan Blachowicz in this spot and pounding my chest, Rakic fade all day. Oh, I don't know if I can do it, though, just because of all those factors. But, I mean, Jan talked about how he's like Gollum in his interview, and the belt is precious to him, and he really wants it back. And I saw that intensity and focus from him on the scales and the face-offs today. So, very tempted. Very, very tempted. I'm not betting Rakic. It's a dog or pass spot. If you want to do the parlay thing, you got a perfect hedge-out opportunity. Anchor it on the favorite here. You got a nice hedge with Blachowicz at plus 165 right now. So I think there's some opportunities here. That is the Undefeated post weigh-in show, folks. I've only got 2 actual bets made on the card at this point. I'm probably going to add a couple that we just kind of talked through. Keep a follow on me at Die-Hard MMA Pod over on Instagram or on Twitter to find out exactly what I'm banking in. Good luck on all your degenerate action tomorrow for UFC Vegas 54. Let's roll. Like and subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Let's go.